the Rangers Journal Night.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Rangers Journal podcast. This is a continuing series looking at who is going to take over as the new Rangers manager in the summer. I'm very happy to be joined by Herman Christensen, who is going to give us his expertise on Norwegian football and particularly on Knutsen. And I've learned to say his name is Kjetil Knutsen. Is that right, Herman?
Yeah, sounds good, mate. Very good.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here. Please, could you just give us a background on what you do and your interest in football, and really just a little bit about yourself and also where people can find you?
Yeah, first and foremost, I have to thank you very much for having me on. It's very exciting to be here. And yeah, I'm a 19-year-old, soon-to-be journalism student, currently working in a primary school while I'm waiting for the study to start. I'm very active on Twitter, or X as it's called now, writing about football, just around, like, in general, a bit of Norwegian football. I write some Norwegian articles for a online newspaper called 433, not like the global one, but kind of the Norwegian version of it. So yeah, I'm a boy who loves football, and I want to make my passion also something I can live off in the future. So that's kind of what I'm working towards right now. So yeah, my life is pretty much football right now, and yeah, it's good.
You sound the same as myself and us here at the Rangers Journal. So thank you very much, Herman, for coming on. Yeah, what we are here to talk about is the vacancy that Rangers, obviously, we're a Scottish football team, as you'll know. We have a vacancy for a manager after losing Philippe Clement. I don't know if you knew much about Philippe, but we're here to talk about Kjetil Knutsen. And First of all, Herman, can you just give me a little bit of his background in management? I don't believe he had much of a playing career, but he certainly has had a decent managerial career. Can you just give me a brief history of Knutsen's managerial career?
Yeah, so he started off in 1995. So he's 56 years old. So it's not as young as some people might think he is. So yeah, started off at a club called Hovding in 1995, and was there for 9 years. And it's like a really small club. Started off there in the 5th tier of the Norwegian football, and led them to the 3rd tier during his reign there. Then he went to Brann as a player development coach. Stayed there for 4 years before moving to another club called Fyllingsdalen in 2009, in the 3rd tier of Norwegian football. He got like okay results, but no promotion or anything like that. But did a decent job. He then moved to a club called Åsane in the same league, and took them to the 2nd tier. So he got them promoted his first year there. Stayed there for a couple of seasons, and then moved to his club now, Bodo Glimt, as an assistant coach in 2017. He got, during the first year when he went there as an assistant coach, they got promoted to the 1st division of Norwegian Football League, the Eliteserien. And before the first season back in the top flight of Norwegian football, the current coach resigned, and Kjetil Knutsen took over for him and became head coach. So this was in 2018, and since then it's been quite an adventure, to say it like that. He's taken them to several European competitions. It's been some great adventures. Prior to his appointment as Glimt coach, Glimt had never won the Norwegian league. They had got a couple of like 2nd places, but it was like in the 70s, so a long time ago. But since his appointment, he's won the league several times. He's got a record of points tally. He got 103 points in the season in 2020. And yeah, he's created a fantastic team. And yeah, he's the most exciting coach we have in Norway for a very long time. So yeah, it's really exciting.
If I can ask you about his tactical style, is he a a philosophical type of manager? Does he have a way of playing and he buys players to suit that, or is he quite good at developing, a squad of players that he's just inherited? What do you think about that?
For me, it's very clear that he has a certain type of football that he wants to play. So it's obviously picking out players that he thinks can suit his style of football. But he's also very good at developing players into. He's very good at integrating them into the system that he wants to play. And he's recently said that his main idol is Jürgen Klopp, and I think that says a lot about his style of football. They play attacking 4-3-3. Basing a lot of the build-up play with one defensive midfielder, kind of distributing the ball, dictating the tempo of the game. They play with a very high line, attacking fullbacks, going on both overlaps and laps like inside the pitch. They often try to seek the spaces between the defensive line and the midfield, especially his midfielders, which leads them to scoring a lot of goals and becoming big goal-scoring threats, as well as his strikers, his wingers. Prior to the Tottenham game that they played yesterday, Knutsen also said that he feels like Tottenham's style of play under former Celtic manager Ernst Postecoglou and Knutsen's Glimt is very similar, the attacking style of football and the way they try to build from the back. So that's, his main philosophy, to build from the back, attacking plays, very much like a high tempo football, high pressing. So yeah.
Does Knutsen value, what would you say, holding on to the ball more than really doing anything with it, or would he rather, take a chance going forward, lose the ball and try to win it back, or is he happy to have possession?
Well, I think, if you look at his stats, it's very much about, they score a lot of goals, Bodo Glimt, but they also concede some goals. And I think, like, for example, in the record-breaking season that I mentioned earlier, where they scored 103 goals, they also conceded 32. And I mean, it doesn't sound that much, but they play 30 games a season. So obviously it's not massive, but it says something about they're not just happy with having the ball in the team, but they also want to get forward and score goals. And I think that's the most important part, that he's not just content with them having the ball. I mean, a bit similar to Ernst Postecoglou, is very much known for like no passing sideways. He also wants to get his team to get forward. It's a bit the same here with Knutsen. He wants them forward. He wants them to score goals, seek the space between the defensive line and midfield, and utilize his wingbacks or his fullbacks, who plays more like wingbacks, to join the attack, overload the box, and so scoring goals is always the main target, no matter how much they're in the lead.
In Scotland, we have basically two teams that dominate, Rangers and Celtic. Most other teams will set up with, as Jose Mourinho would say, park the bus. How does that style of football compare to the teams outside Bodo Glimt and Norway? Are other teams, do they come out and play football, play attacking football against him, or do they kind of sit back and try to, limit the chances that their teams can make?
Well, I think he's definitely had to adapt a bit, because during the years when he's been the coach, it's become very, very, very well known that you'll get punished if you push too much forward while playing against Glimt. So the season just started here in Norway, and you can see from the first couple of games that Glimt has played, it's been so many teams sitting back, trying to just disrupt the tempo of the game, trying to defend, not that much willing to push forward and try to score goals. So they have to play against a lot of low blocks teams. The main teams or the big clubs, for example Rosenborg, if you heard about them, for example, they play more attacking, but most of the teams are very much like low block teams, especially when playing against Bodo Glimt. So I think it will be very much the same like for Celtic and Rangers when they play other teams in the Scottish League as well.
Would you say that he had a particular tactic for getting the better of that type of low block? What does he do to combat low blocks?
Well, I think it's just about, they're very quick in transitions. They're very patient with the ball. Like they want to get forward, but they're not like. He's very much on the fact that he wants brave decisions, but not stupid ones. So he wants them forward. He wants to overload the box. And I think what I mentioned earlier with the midfielders, particularly, seeking the space between the defensive line and the midfield. So when a midfielder pushes in between those lines, it always appears like a dilemma for the defender. Should I push up? Should I stay back? If he stays back, the midfielder will then get the space to push forward, can score a goal, because the Glimt midfielders score a lot of goals. Or he could push up and go into his body, and they will combine around him and create space in behind again. So I think that's kind of the key for Glimt to kind of unlocking those low blocks by seeking that space, and they're doing it every game, so persistent with it, trying to unlock that low block by seeking those spaces. Also with the fullbacks trying to overlap or underlap by going inside of the pitch, seeking those spaces in between the fullback and the center backs, trying to rip them apart in terms of like their form, and seeking that space to attack either by getting a man on and playing through someone else, or getting into that space themselves and creating a goal scoring opportunity.
You mentioned the one midfielder, the one holding midfielder. Now, we've had at Rangers for the past, I would say, the last little while, under Steven Gerrard, Giovanni van Bronckhorst, even Michael Beale and Clement, as this two holding midfield positions with the fullbacks pushing on. Why does he allow just the one holding midfielder? And what do you think, or how do you think that benefits the team in an attacking way?
I think it's, because the defensive midfielder that they use is called Patrick Berg. He's kind of the main man in the Glimt system. He's the captain. He's been there all his career, basically. And he's so good at, having that balance between offensive power and also the defensive, keeping the defensive structure as well. So I think it's just about, when they seek the spaces with the two midfielders in front of that defensive midfielder, when they seek the space, you're going to be very reliant on, midfielder who's safe with the ball, who can protect the back line, who doesn't get too eager to push forward, but also has the maturity to stay back when it's needed. And I think it's very much up to the player. He's been very lucky to have a player like Patrick Berg, who's very good at that kind of balance between attack and defense. So I don't know if you have anyone that comes to mind that could kind of suit that role, but I'm sure he could find a way to play with, like, let's say two defensive midfielders as well. But it's been working so well for him with having that one balanced midfielder in that six, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I think a lot of Rangers fans would have liked to have moved over to the one, especially when we'd play at home against the weaker teams. We always seem to still have the two holding midfielders, which a lot of people couldn't understand. If I can ask you about your centre forward position, what type of centre forward does he like? Does he like a big, strong player that can hold the ball up, or is he more inclined to go for someone, faster feet, maybe a bit more pace?
He's very much on the kind of powerhouse forward,
Okay.
I mean, if you look at some of the strikers that's been there for the past couple of seasons, you could have, for example, Victor Boniface, who's now playing for Bayer Leverkusen. You've got a striker now plays for Marseille, Montagna. Both African strikers, very big, very physical. Now they got a Danish striker called Kasper Høeg, very physical. And I think the key with having like a big physical striker, and that's why he prefers a big physical striker, is because they're very good at linking the play. That's what it develops with their game, because they're got, heading ability, they can score goals, but it's about getting them to be like a team player, combining with the wingers, combining with those midfielders, seeking the space and opening up space, because that's really what the system is about, opening up the space. And you can see it's working very well, because they're not just playmakers like strikers, but they also score a lot of goals. So it's very much finding that balance, but he makes them more of a team player and not just I don't know if you will call it that, but like selfish goal scoring strikers, but he can do both.
And now Knutsen was, I believe, linked with Ajax recently, and obviously we're talking about him if he would, possibility of him coming to Rangers. Do you think he's ready to leave Bodo Glimt? Do you think he's achieved enough there, or do you think that he maybe would want to stay there, or maybe he has his own personal reasons for staying at the club? What do you think the likelihood that he moves on, if not to Rangers, to another team, round this summer as well?
I think because he's obviously been linked with a lot of teams during the past few years, like ever since he got into like the Conference League quarterfinal in the 21-22 season, it's been like crazy much rumors about where he's going, if he's staying. And I think what he's tried to achieve before is like something he's achieving now, like a big European journey. For example, in the Europa League, now they're in the semi-final. I think he's dreaming of the Champions League as well. But I don't think it's ever been more likely for him to leave than now in this summer, because I think he's shown that maturity that he wants to stay, he wants to build and continue to build on this project. But I do think if he's ever going to leave, I think it will be this summer. And I think a club like, let's say, Ajax or a club like Rangers, I think it would suit him the best, because it's kind of similar. It's a big club. And I mean, Bodo Glimt is not really a big club, but it's a big club expected to win, expected to have to play against, like we mentioned, those low block teams. And I think that would kind of suit him. So a club like Ajax and Rangers would be good fits for him, I think. And I think if he's ever going to leave Glimt, because I don't know if he has some personal reasons, he's never spoken about that before, but maybe he has about maybe some family staying there and he wants to stay with them or something like that. So I don't know. But yeah, I think this summer is the most likely for him to leave.
As regards to when he is signing players, I'm assuming he's not used to having a very large budget to sign, whoever he wants. Is he quite good at spotting a player who maybe is undervalued somewhere else in the world and bringing them to Bodo Glimt and developing them, to turn them in, and then also to turn a profit on these type of players? Is that the kind of way he works, or does he get the most expensive players in Norway and kind of win the league with them?
Absolutely. And I think obviously like the past couple of years, when they had already like won the league a couple of times, been in Europe, they obviously get more money, so they can spend a bit more on more established players, let's say from the Danish league or the top Norwegian league. But the first team that he kind of won the league with, the top division, was basically a team set together by people that never had really succeeded where they was before. So he picked them up from lower tiers of the Norwegian football, or maybe like a bench player in a top flight club, put them together in a team and just kind of oil them together into that winning machine that they are right now. And he's been very mature with it. So it's not been like 5 players out that window and then 5, 6 more in next. He's kind of very much stayed with the same core of players who's still there now, developing them. And when it comes to like the revenue he gets when he sells them, I've written down a few that, I mean, for example, he sold, first he bought Albert Grønbæk, who now plays for Southampton in the Premier League. He bought him from Denmark for 4.8 million. And just 2 years later, he sold him to Rennes for 15 million. And also the 2 strikers that I mentioned earlier, Mombagna and Boniface, bought them for Mombagna. He bought for 8 million euros. No, bought for 1.55 million euros and sold for 8 million euros just 1 year later. And the same with Victor Boniface. I think he came from like an African academy or like an African club, struggled with injuries the first few seasons. But then when he started to play regularly, got a bit of grip with his injury problems. He was sold to Union Saint-Gilloise in the Belgian league for 6.1. So he's definitely getting, the best out of his players, developing them, and then also has the ability to sell them on. And what I also think is very important is to find a replacement again, because every time you sold a player who's very valuable for the team, both in terms of what they actually bring, and also the market value. He also has the ability to find someone else that can kind of cover that gap that the player leaves. And I think that's also a very integral part of why his team has become so successful, because he's got that eye for talent and eye for a player that, you know, maybe not a lot of other people sees.
At Rangers, we will have a sporting director or a director of football. Is that something he's used to working with, or does he generally do the scouting and signing of players himself?
As far as I know, I know he has scouts and stuff like that. I don't really think like the sporting director of Glimt has that much to do with kind of what happens with the transfers. Obviously, it's kind of like logistics and stuff like that he's involved in. But when it comes to like, I think Knutsen always has the final say on who is in, who is out, who he wants, who he doesn't want. And I think, you know, it just underlines the quality he has of finding that talent, you know, because obviously, as I mentioned earlier, he's worked as a talent scout, talent development coach before. And yeah, it's been so exciting to see him, because he always it's always a new name on the Glimt sheet when they sell someone, and you just know that they're going to be great, because he just got that eye for talent. And I'm very sure that it's always him who has the final say, and who kind of sends out the scouts and knows what type of players who will fit his system.
Now, you're saying if he did have to leave Norwegian football, it probably would be just now. If he comes to a team like Rangers, do you see that him viewing a team like Rangers or even Ajax, you've mentioned, as a stepping stone to a bigger career? Where do you think his managerial career could end up, or where do you think that he will do the heights that he can achieve?
I think it's difficult to say, because I think a key factor here is his age, because he's obviously not like a young manager. He's 56. I think that could play a bit of a part. I think the next step would be logical for him to be, let's say, Rangers or Ajax. If it's his kind of final destination or his top ceiling, I don't know. I think if you look at his team, what they are achieving, I think if he could do the same with Rangers or Ajax, get them to like European finals, get them far either in the Europa League or get them far in the Champions League, it would be great for him. But you know, his age, he's 56, and as well as he's more like a project manager than a winning. He's not coming in for a couple of seasons and winning trophies necessarily. He wants to build something, and I think that's have to bit of like it's a factor as well, because when he's 56 and he's going to build something, it's not like, you know, it's difficult to say. But I think let's say Anders Postecoglou, for example, he was also quite old when he took over Celtic, and maybe people thought that was kind of his ceiling. But you see, like, if you do well in the Scottish League, it's very easy to get a job in, for example, the Premier League. So it's difficult to say, but I'm sure that wherever he decides to go, I think it will be the right step for him, the right step for the club he wants to go to, because he's shown that maturity, that's not eager to just jump on the first opportunity that comes. He's been very patient with it, and he wants to kind of find that next project that fits the best for him. So let's say it comes to Rangers, I would be very, very happy for him, and I think that would be a great fit. And yeah, you never know, if he has a couple of good seasons with them, it would be great to see. And yeah, maybe he could go somewhere else as well. But I mean, obviously Rangers, for example, Ajax, they're big clubs, and I think he knows that as well. And he wouldn't take that for granted or look at it like a next step. He's very much on that, you know, working day for day. So I don't think he looks that much into the future, you know.
If I could put you on the spot and you had to pick his biggest flaw or biggest weak spot as a manager, what would you say that was?
I think the obvious one would be, I don't know if maybe it's unfair to put it on him, but obviously he's developed like an 11 basically in Glimt. But you saw, for example, yesterday, obviously they lost to Tottenham 3-1. It's not the worst result, but when you kind of have a couple of players out like they did yesterday, it was very important to the team. It's, you know, he puts other players in and they do like a okay job, but it's very like reliant on that 11, those kind of key players. If you lose some of them, the system kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say it kind of falls down, but definitely takes a big hit. And I think, I don't know if it's right to call it a flaw, but it's definitely very, very reliant on those very good players. And I think obviously you can develop other players as well. He's shown that obviously a lot of times to cover for them, but I don't think he can do it in like a short amount of time. He has to be given time, you know. So I think, yeah, both that and the fact that he has to get the time to work with the team and to get results. He's not necessarily, you know, said that he would get results straight in, and I think that could be a flaw for a club like Rangers, who would, you know, the expectation is always to win the league. So yeah, I think those two are like the main things.
If I could just stay on that point with regards to his best 11 or his preferred 11, does that mean that he's quite slow to make changes in games if things aren't going particularly well? Will he not make substitutions till late in the match? What do you think about that?
I think he's good at it in a certain way. Like he's not afraid to make changes. Like for example, yesterday he made changes quite early when he saw that things weren't going quite as planned. But when he's got that main 11, he's very much trusting them to do the job. And obviously he didn't have that main 11 yesterday. So I think it will, maybe, I don't know for sure, but he's definitely very reliant on those 11 players. And I think he might trust them more than they might have, that might benefit the team. You know, if they're underperforming in the game, I don't know if he'll take them off or maybe he'll let them stay on, because obviously they've been good for him in the past. So I mean, it could be something that to pick on. But he's not like known for his stubbornness with the players of his like his favorites or something like that. But it could be something.
Well, Herman, thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything that you haven't said about him that you maybe would like to have said that or maybe the Rangers fans would like to know about?
Yeah, I think like first and foremost, I think is if he were to leave Glimt and come to Rangers, I think it would be a great appointment. And I think give him time. I know it's going to be hard if like things aren't going well at the start, because it's obviously you've got that winning culture at Rangers. But I mean, he's got that special ability to kind of maximize a player's potential and foster that cohesive team spirit. And I think he can only start winning and getting those results like he's got at Bodo Glimt if you give him a bit of time. And if you do, I'm very much sure that he will be successful. Like whether that's as Rangers or somewhere else, I think he will be successful.
Well, again, thank you very much for coming on. Please let us know any of your social media addresses that people can find you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. My Twitter name is HermCBall, so you can find me there. That's pretty much the only social I use. So yeah, thank you.
Well, again, Herman, thank you very much, and good luck again with your journalistic career. And I'll be following you on Twitter myself, and hopefully I can chat to you again at some point in the future. But again, thank you everyone for watching, and remember, every night is the Rangers Journal night. Good night.